Welcome to From the Source, a podcast where we connect directly with the marketers, buyers, influencers, and operators who are actually building and scaling modern B2B growth engines. In an industry filled with noise, buzzwords, and endless tactics, this show is about getting back to what really works. We talk with the people behind the strategy to understand how they think about demand generation, vendor partnerships, team alignments, emerging technologies like AI, and the real-world challenges of building effective marketing organizations. Each conversation focuses on practical experience, lessons learned, and the strategies that are driving results today across the B2B and technology space. And I am joined today by the Director of Demand Generation Video at Enghouse, Sylvain Awad. Hi, Sylvain. How are you doing?
Hi, Dave. How's it going?
Doing well. Really looking forward to today's conversation. I know we were able to connect a few weeks ago. We got into some really meaty conversations around kind of the evolution of marketing and how we see some of the shiny objects in the space being maybe more of a distraction, and how you've navigated those waters around ABM and intent data. So I'm really looking forward to today's conversation. Thank you so much for joining us. So, I know you've been in the space for a while. Obviously, you started off in product marketing, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. And then over the years, you've transitioned into more demand generation focused roles. I'm curious, how have you seen the evolution of marketing over the past years? What's been the biggest thing that stood out?
The biggest thing now, from my experience, is you're going from doing brand ads and getting your name out there to more now generating leads and more concrete attribution to your spending. So before you could spend and there's not necessarily the right way to calculate the ROI, but if you increase traffic on your website and you increase brand visibility and things like that, it was the thing to do with ads everywhere. Now you are responsible more and more for a funnel and getting quality leads and getting leads to sales and that route. And it's more now you're looking at the best way to calculate ROI with the right attribution. So you're more on the hook for lead generation and sales than you were before, where it was more brand marketing and positioning and like awareness and traffic and things like that. So I've seen the evolution from just doing regular marketing to now being more sales oriented than before.
Yeah, I think, I'm reminded of the old adage of, 50% of your marketing budget is well spent. You just don't know which 50%. And I think long gone are the days to where that's even acceptable. And I think you used the proper term as, marketing's on the hook, right? It's being scrutinized.
And I think now the way I've also seen evolution is you're more direct and you're more specific in your ISP and your vertical and who you market to. Before it was a bit more general, it would be, I would say, so let's say you're marketing a video game, 16 to 25, adolescent, male, female, whatever. And now it's a bit more specific in terms of I just want financial companies with 500 and more employees located in, let's say, either a specific region or throughout a bigger geographic region. But you're really evolved from being just general to now really being specific. And we're marketing at verticals, but now we're even looking into micro verticals. So verticals within a vertical, which is it's a bit crazy when I look at it 20 years ago and I look at it now where you're really specific. But that's the way you have to kind of compete in this world. If you're not specific and precise, then your message gets diluted and you're not getting attribution or you're not seeing results and then you lose your marketing budget.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, the message gets diluted and the content also loses its personalization. Yeah, no, you're exactly right.
And that's the other aspect of it. Now it's even more personalized, right? With your phones listening to you, it's really, and if you don't see that personalization, you don't feel like you're not necessarily valued, but you're more aware of that personalization. And if you don't see it, then it stands out, in either a bad way or in a good way, but more specifically in a bad way, I guess.
Right. We all get the creepy vibes at the beginning, but then it's like, oh, they know me. They know what I'm looking for. Yeah.
And it's kind of incredible. You're talking to your friends and you're talking about a specific topic, and then an hour later you go on Instagram and you see ads specifically tailored to what you just talked about. And that's insane for me. And it feels like really Big Brother's listening to you, but that's how you need to compete, right? You have to be tailored and you have to be specific and you have to be precise.
I've noticed, especially over the last, I would say, 7 to 10 years, right? I think B2C marketing has dramatically influenced B2B marketing. I think B2C was ages ahead of the curve on that because of the tools that they had. But I think the shift from a B2B marketing strategy has been more, well, at the end of the day, these are people, right? And we need to market to them in the same manner as they're used to being marketed to. So no, I've seen that shift, and it's almost a chicken or egg scenario, right? And you talk about now we're going into micro verticals and we're going even deeper and deeper. It's we have more data, we have more access to data than we've ever had before. And is that the reason we're hyper targeting, or and I would say judged more strictly on ROI, or is it we're judged more strictly on ROI, which has forced us to use more our data more effectively?
I think I think you're right on the point there. I think it's both. I think we have a lot more data. A lot of companies are leveraging their data to sell you database or personas or people or things like that. And now that you're judged on your ROI and how many leads you bring in, you have to show results and you have to show that you're bringing in leads. It's not just views and clicks and traffic on your site. You have to show conversion. So you have to be as specific and as precise as your ads. And you're right. I think the B2C helped forge B2B in terms of like being specific and being precise, and even developing like ICPs and developing product positioning and developing tailored messaging to your specific audience. And you see sometimes B2B using mainstream media to get to that person, because at the end of the day, it's the same consumer. He's buying products, shoes, and he's also buying software for his company. So you're kind of like they're in the same media, the same environment, doing research and searches and things like that. So it's the evolution is a bit crazy, and we have a lot more data for sure.
Right, and it's in our face, right, with the ROI judgment and holding everybody accountable. I don't think there's a marketer out there that would disagree that marketing has been held more accountable in the latter years. But I think that transitions us to the next topic, which is every marketer's favorite topic: sales. Right, the people we love and hate to work with. But do you see that increasing the collaboration between sales, or do you think that it's in some cases even increased the friction between sales and marketing?
No,
accountability.
I would say, from my experience, and there has been some evolution. I think before, sales didn't really understand what marketing was doing and why they were doing what they were doing. And now with the B2B and the lead generation and the KPIs, they see the added value of marketing. So I've seen more specifically in my organization, a lot more collaboration, and even to the point where now sales comes to demand gen and marketing and say, I want to do a specific campaign for this target audience, and this type of messaging has resonated for me in the past. Could we leverage some of that? So I've definitely seen more collaboration than I have in the past in terms of that. So I think that's
for better or worse. Right.
Yeah. Well, you're right. Because if the messaging that they provided doesn't work, you're still on the hook for not converting. And so they're like, okay, well, why is the campaign not working? And I'm like, well, sometimes, you need to adjust, adapt. Sometimes one message is not always the best one for this specific topic, even though maybe it worked once for one person. It doesn't necessarily will mean it's going to work for 100 to 1,000 people. So it's that's that nuance that you have to tell sales, right?
Because timing, communication platform, and communication message all have to align, right? In order to make a message stick. And I think a lot of people forget that. So that's where, in terms of where we've worked with our marketing teams has come in handy, is salespeople are really good at, kind of that rifle shot, but marketing can provide that air cover and go in with multiple types of messaging, multiple different platforms, and increase the penetration for sales and help them, get in where they they want.
I think so. I think now the discontent, but the difference is sometimes you see sales not necessarily understand that when you are putting people on a nurture program or on a campaign, the results are not going to show in 5 days or in a week or 2 weeks. You take it's a longer process to get to a point where you're actually starting to see a bit more results, and that's the discussion with sales than anything else in my experience, anyways.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. But I think what's brought sales and marketing together as a whole. Obviously, there are still organizations out there that are incredibly siloed. A lot of that depends on leadership, but I think both are feeling the pressures of quarterly performance and quarterly ROI, and I think that's a bonding mechanism for both teams.
100%. Yeah, because and it's you bring in a good point, because I do it not on purpose, but I have, let's say, biweekly meetings with product sales and demand gen, and I review our KPIs, the demand gen KPIs, and they do the same, but only with the sales team, and they get to see what are our KPIs and what are the results, and it shows our value, but it also shows that we're accountable for getting an ROI on the budget that we spend. It's not like we're going to send you to an event, you're going to have fun for 5 days, and then we're not going to look at the results. It's like you're going there, you need to come back for a certain amount of leads, and you need to follow up after the leads, or else you're not going next year. So it's
right.
It's that type of discussion that we have now, and it shows accountability. So I'm accountable for a budget, but they're also accountable for some of that conversion in some ways.
Absolutely. No, so I think, and I'm going to preface this question at a high level, because I think we'll spend some time digging in deeper. But what does marketing pressure look like when quarterly performance is judged so strictly and judged as it is today? What does success look like? How does sales see that success? You're touching on it a little bit now, but just to go in a little deeper, what types of programs, what types of segments of marketing, consumer marketing, event marketing, that type of stuff? What does that look like?
It's pretty different. So I'm going to give you a couple of examples. So right now, where every quarter we have a strategy in place for our products, and we do a combination of email marketing, we do events, we do webinar, and we do ABM. And concretely, if let's say I'm going to an event and my event is costing me $30,000 to go to that event, my KPI is double that in bookings, and then I would say at least 5 times in opportunities. So within a certain amount of time, whether 6 months to 9 months, maybe it could be a year. If I'm spending $30K, I'm expecting at least $60,000 in revenue booked, and maybe 260,000 in opportunities there. So that is kind of what we tell sales before we get to an event. Okay, this is the budget we have. This is our expectations. And we're both on the hook to get that level. I mean, I'm more on the hook on the opportunity front, so bringing in quality leads, and they're on the hook in the booking side, making sure they're closing the deal and it's booked and such. But that's where I kind of like not too happy with the booking type KPI, but it is what it is. Because I'm not in some way, shape, or form, marketing is there all the way to once the sales gets the lead and then they convert it. So I can't hold their hands to convert the lead or to make them write a proposal and send it to them and then close it. But we're still accountable for that ROI. So even though marketing is hands off after a certain amount of time, you're still on the hook for that budget that you spent and that return.
Right. But I would take those metrics to mean, or to assume that it's following kind of a standardized conversion waterfall that your specific company has seen over the years, where it's a 40% opportunity close rate, right? And that's that 2x ROI to 5x. And then the timeline that you're associated with is because of the sales cycle. That's awesome. I don't actually hear that often. There's a lot of marketers that are completely on a different metric scale.
And that's why, that's like the evolution of B2B, right? Before you did a lot of marketing and brand awareness, and now you're really on the hook for booking and opportunities created and ROI. So we have on a quarterly basis, we're looking at a balance sheet and we're looking how much money I brought in and how much money I spent and what's the return. If I'm utopic, Well, the kind of the KPI we're looking at is $2. So if I'm spending $1, I need to return $2. $2 to $3. I mean, I think $3 is a bit excessive uh, because of how competitive the market is now.
Right.
And also, every product is different in terms of margin and things like that. And in some way, shape, or form, marketing is not responsible for the margin. You get what you get. But so long as we're seeing an evolution of that ROI. So if I started the quarter, if I finished the quarter at 1.5 in terms of ROI, and next quarter I'm at 1.8, and then the next I'm at 2.1, then that shows growth, and that shows we're doing something good in terms of
optimizing
spending. Yeah, optimizing the spending and things like that. So, and the next year when you do your budget, you do have to look at these metrics to say, okay, am I going to spend this amount on an event or not, and where am I going to spend it? And it's also looking at your average deals. So it's incredible how my company is so focused on finance. I have to look at average deal size, how much money am I spending, what's the return, and then look at what for the next quarter or the year after my KPIs is going to be based off of average deal size, how many deals I brought in, how many opportunities closed, and the close rate and the conversion rates from MQL all the way down to opportunity. So I look at all of those on a daily basis and on a quarterly basis.
Do you find yourself segmenting them by strategy?
Yeah.
But I know you're doing other things than just event marketing. So, or do you lump them together from an ROI basis?
No, well, we look at campaign by campaign. So let's say one quarter we're doing advertising. I kind of have an always on SEM campaign because I know that this is it's helping indirectly SEO, but it's also driving traffic to my website for the specific verticals that I'm after and the specific product that I'm after. So that one, I don't necessarily look at ROI on it, but even though if management looks at it and says, okay, you spent 20K this quarter, what's the ROI on it? And I'm showing 5 leads. It doesn't necessarily show the entire results.
Right.
So then I have to justify by the increase of traffic on the site quarter by quarter, month over month, to show that this spending has helped indirectly with brand awareness, traffic, and return visits, and all of this. So there's still that type of justification, but yeah, it's campaign by campaign. So if I'm paying money to do content syndication, how many leads? What's the quality of the leads? What's the conversion from MQL to BQL to SAL? SAL is specifically the ones that are assigned to sales. So we have to look at all of that quarter by quarter to make sure that we're on track in terms of our spending and making sure that we're spending the money in the right campaign.
You actually just already answered my next question, which was on those tactics that don't show immediate. How difficult or how easy are those conversations, because you kind of understand or maybe even have historical data on how they're going to play out in subsequent quarters?
So I would say if I have buy-in from sales, and I specifically have a good relationship with the VP of sales, and he knows the tactic and the idea behind that spending, then I have less justification at the end of the quarter or at the end of the year with regards to that. But if I don't, and I do something without necessarily implicating anybody, then I'm on the hook for the ROI. And so I would say if I start something in Q1, I should be able to show a result by Q4. If I started something in Q4, then I'm going to look at Q1, Q2 to see the ROI. So sometimes at the end of the quarter, but you have historical information that shows you if a campaign you did or an event you did is showing results or not. So if within 6 months you're not seeing anything and the well of leads that from that event has dried, then you know it's not necessarily something that you want to redo next year. So that's how kind of you look at the results and see if you want to spend that money next year or not.
Right. And you talked about SEM specifically, and that's one of those things, though. It's really difficult to track tangible ROI, but you and I both know you can't cut it off.
No,
as
you can't.
Competitive as the market is, it's just not something you want to mess with. So I think that's a great point of not all tactics are created equally. Not everything is as crazy of an idea as it might sound.
Yeah. And I don't know if you're going to get to that point, but then there's all that last year, the whole buzzword was intent. This year and last year was also intent and AI. But I have to say that the results based off of intent campaigns and things like that are not great, because intent for one vendor is not the same intent as another vendor. So you're kind of stuck in a lot of different intent information that are not necessarily showing anything valid sign from a sales perspective. So when we looked at last year and this year doing ABM, it's one of those campaigns we're doing as well. We have to now we have to re-strategize for Q3 and see it more as a holistic campaign than just an ABM campaign.
Yeah, no, you're leading me right in. We were going to talk about intent and ABM, and these are things that, especially with as closely as we work with sales, right? They're hearing the buzzwords, and they're naturally curious. What are we doing in these areas? What are we doing with AI? What are we doing with ABM and intent? So you and I know that not all intent is created equal. The sources of intent matter. How it's measured matters. There's search level intent. There's buying signals. There's content engagement intent. There's all of these signals out there, and there are vendors that do a good job of combining them. But they're also it's anytime you're taking in external data, it's muddy, right? It's not crystal clear. So it sounds like, but I'm not going to assume. Do you think sometimes those signals are interpreted too aggressively by organizations, or even within the organization, too aggressively by different departments?
100%. And I think a lot of companies are using intent as a way to sell their solution. And then we take it in as cash. Okay, you're showing you have a lot of high intent leads. Let me take those leads and give them directly to the BDR because they're showing intent. And then you get to the BDR point and he's making calls and nobody's picking up and people are hanging up or saying, I'm not interested, and how do you got my number and all of this. And then you're scratching your head. I thought it was showing intent and I thought it was ready for a BDR. And in all intents and purposes, you still have to nurture these intent leads to get to a point where they're ready to listen to your spiel, look at your product in some way, shape, or form, right? And that's something that probably I didn't understand last year. And as we started doing more and more intent campaign, I'm starting to understand a bit more. And now that's where the shift I mentioned at the start of the year, we had an intent tool that showed companies that had intent. We would take at least 10 companies, give it to the BDR and call them right away and start nurturing and catching them. We're seeing it's not working. So now we're putting all of these 10 companies into a nurture program, and we'll get to the BDR once they're showing to clicking, downloading, and reading our content before we get them to a BDR. So I've sold it to sale as being, it's high quality leads, high quality companies, and then it's not showing any good signs of progress, and we look like idiots. But it's give and take.
It's how you learn. Right. So I think, what we're trying to use these buzzwords for, right, are silver bullets. Intent, ABM, these are all shortcuts to getting closed won revenue. And that's because that's what we're judged on as marketers. What we're not remembering is intent is marketed as well. And they're doing a very good job of marketing intent as this magic pill that's going to help us close more deals. But it's not. I don't use the word intent. I use the word intelligence, right? Because we do have all of these
data. That's a great word. You're right. And it's better to use intelligence than intent, because intent, I think, is misleading.
I do too. The problem we run into is all of our competitors are using intent.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Because of marketing. So this is the soapbox, and this is the cyclical thing that we always go down, is we use VM Intelligence as a product. And it's because of what we do with our publisher sites, right? We have all of these data points. We know who's reading what, how many people at each company are reading it, what's the average read time, scroll time, all that stuff. And we use those data points to prioritize, which is fantastic. If you're not using the word intent, sometimes you miss out on the budget because, hey, I have this budget for intent.
That's true. So, or even AI, right?
And AI is exactly the same.
Yeah. And you're like, now marketing is going to use AI and it's going to simplify the whole process. But we're not there yet. I mean, there are process. The big buzzword now is AI agent doing all the marketing for you. And I'm pretty sure there's only a handful of companies that are able to automate the process, but that's a company like within a company. If I'm a one product company and I'm like 5 people, I'm able to automate some of that process and justify I'm using AI agents to do my entire marketing funnel.
Right.
But bigger organization that have multiple verticals and multiple solution and touch points, and to connect all of this is still not up to everybody's standard, and you can't necessarily automate the entire process. And I find that so misleading because it in some way, shape, or form, it devalues the work of marketing, and it just makes it seem like, oh, marketing is easy now. You could automate the whole process and you don't need a marketing department. Like, you're not.
I don't trust it that much yet.
Yes, exactly.
It's going to be a long time.
and also now everybody's AI fatigued. Everybody has all these AI agents sending them emails, and they're all fatigued by the fact that it's all personalized and they're getting messages, and we're getting solicited so much now that you really have to stand out with your message and your targeting more so than before.
Right. Right. And we actually we went into depth on AI a couple programs ago with Karina. Hi, Karina. I know you're listening. But I think what a lot of people don't realize is how prompt based it is. If you're not effective in using it as the tool that it's intended to be, it's nowhere near ready for what companies are using it for. And the people using it sometimes haven't gone through the training or haven't had the experience with it to really be that effective with it. So, no, I think we're going to see some pendulum swings over the next few years. I think you're absolutely going to see AI impact and change the game. I believe it will be the next internet level kind of event, but we're nowhere near what it's being advertised as capable of.
Yeah, I totally agree 100%. And a lot of people are like riding that wave. And so you're deflecting a bit from the work by saying everything could be automated, when in essence, you're only able to automate a certain portion of it, and you still need people to optimize and look at and follow up to make sure that things are running smoothly instead of just automating the entire process and connecting things and stuff like that. I definitely think AI is great in terms of analyzing your information and your data, and it provides, like you said, intelligence. But it's not the crystal ball of, okay, that specific person is the right person to contact, and he's looking for your product right away. It's not always the case.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever had a conversation with somebody who's ready to buy because they read a white paper or because they clicked on an ad. I've been doing it for a while, but I don't think I've ever run into that situation. No, you're exactly right. And I think, we've talked a lot about, I think, some really helpful topics, especially for those younger marketers that are coming in that, maybe less than 7 to 10 years in the space. I think they saw the beginning of this evolution, but I don't think they saw what it was like before, right? Yeah. So in terms of advice to modern marketers, knowing that they're having to battle with internal teams, sales, CXOs, right? Finance, knowing that they have to compete in a very crowded space in which the level of data and the level of content that we produce today versus what we did 10 years ago has just increased noise, right? It's made it harder to cut through. What advice can you give them? What would you say to yourself 10, 15 years ago?
That's a great question. I would say understand, the primary thing to do is really understand your market, your audience. And I think build great relationship with sales so that they're always seem to be on board with your campaign, and then understand what works, what doesn't work, and look at and analyze your results. I would say that are the key things that I would recommend any marketer do, is making sure that they look at their results and understand what they need to do to optimize it for the future, and continuously learn and not be shy to go one direction and then change the next direction, so long as you're evolving and you're improving on your work, right? I think a lot of people feel like they're scared to do something because you're on the hook for a budget. But if it doesn't work, just try something else. And then if that works, then you continue on that path. But it shouldn't stop you from trying something and learning from it.
I love that advice. I think it's almost get back to basics, right? Don't overcomplicate it. And
No,
I think
because there's, like you said, there's so many tools. If you understand your audience and you understand your results concretely, where are your leads coming from? Why was this working and why was that not working? Then you're able to really be able to fine tune your marketing initiative and go with what works well for you.
Perfect. Yeah, I love it. So in that vein, how important are the vendors that you work with?
Super important. I think if your vendor understands you well and understands your market well and what your KPIs are, then you just have a better working relationship. I see sometimes an external vendor that's similar to a sales team. If you're able to get them on board with your ideas and your messaging, then or your product and USP, then they'll be able to be better on the ball in terms of providing you with that ROI, so long as they understand what your key ROI are. And I think that's sometimes when you go into a campaign or an external vendor and you say, okay, I just want content syndication, and you don't really care about the results, you're not building a great working relationship, because they could do whatever they want and just show you, okay, 100 people downloaded your content. Okay, so what?
Yeah, what does that mean?
Right? Yeah, exactly. What does that mean? So, but that's what you asked us to do. And you're like, well, okay, yeah, you're right. So you really have to know your topic to be able to better manage your vendors.
No, I think that's a very strong point. And I would also maybe advise some of the younger marketers out there to really understand what your KPIs actually are, right? Yes. And I think that that's an internal communication that sometimes doesn't always hit. You know, we have conversations all the time around, I need 1,000 leads. Okay, why do you need 1,000 leads? Well, you need 1,000 leads because you were told by your boss you need 1,000 leads. But your boss needs 1,000 leads because they need this much pipeline. They need this much. So yes. If you can accomplish that, 800 leads, or if it takes 1,200 leads to accomplish that, that's what you really need, right? And I think I see too many conversations that haven't gone to that depth. It's just surface level metrics.
That's a great point. And it's something I forgot about when I was saying some advice. I would say, before you launch a campaign, know what's the end result that will show success. Right. And that's super important. So before you launch a campaign, okay, what will success look like with this campaign? Whether an event, whether an email campaign, how many opens do I need? How many downloads do I need? What is actual success? Then you're better able to gauge a vendor, better gauge your success. And also you're able to justify, okay, I did this campaign. These are the key results I was able to attain. That helps you justify your work and your campaign as well. So it definitely is important. You're right. You have to. Why is my boss asking me 1,000 leads? Like, what's the point?
Yeah, what does that mean?
What's the point?
What does that do?
But if you understand that they need pipeline and the 1,000 leads now will convert maybe in 9 months, then you understand, okay, well, you're building momentum, you're building a pipeline, you need top level leads to get to a point where they become bottom funnel leads eventually over time. But yeah, definitely understanding it.
I'm going to end on a funnel, right? And it's never going to happen, but hypothetically, if you could remove one buzzword from marketing today, what would it be?
One buzzword?
Yeah, one buzzword, one silver bullet, whichever one you want to pick.
I would say intent.
Okay. Well, we did spend some time talking about that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, AI is always going to be good for marketing so long as you know how to use it, and it just also helps you maybe do more with less because you have the help of AI tool. But intent is just, I think intent is what you make it be, like what it is for you.
What you do with it. It could
be something so different for everybody else, but if you know what your purpose is and what you're looking for, then intent is just whatever buzzword people are using. I definitely prefer your word intelligence. I think that's way more on the ball than intent. Intent is just like used so often that it becomes unnecessarily.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Hopefully it made sense. I know
it absolutely did. No, and if you and I can't remove the word intent, let's do our part to educate on what intent should be, right?
Yes.
Maybe that'll help. Maybe that'll help move the needle. No, that's awesome. Well, Sylvain, I was excited to have this conversation. I told you that at the beginning, and it did not disappoint. I can't thank you enough for sharing your experience and your thoughts with us. And thank you, everyone who's listening to From the Source. And if you found value in today's conversation, be sure to hit that follow button on the podcast and stay tuned for future conversations with more experienced professionals like Sylvain here. So thank you so much, Sylvain. I hope you enjoy the rest of your beautiful day.
Thanks, Dave. This was really fun and insightful. So thanks for inviting me to this podcast. Appreciate it.